Yeah. Start with a nice hack, some phlegm on the microphone.
I put my phlegm on the microphone.
Hello and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast. I'm Craig Moorhead.
And I'm Shawn Harwell, and this is the podcast where we talk about the movies that slipped by quite a few of us. If you want to join the discussion, come find us on Facebook. You can check us out on Twitter at Never Podcast, or go visit our website, neverheardpodcast.com.
That's great. Thanks, Shawn.
You're welcome, Craig.
So today we are talking about a movie called Buffalo Soldiers, and I'll run down some of the vital and I'll run down the plot for you here real quick, and some of the credits and so on.
Let's do that.
So this is a 2001 movie starring Joaquin Phoenix, Joaquin, Ed Harris, Anna Paquin, among many others.
Scott Glenn.
Yeah, Scott Glenn.
Can't leave him out.
Which is great. And our IMDb summary today is very short and gives you almost no idea what happens. A criminal subculture operates among U.S. soldiers stationed in West Germany just before the fall of the Berlin Wall.
I think that's all you need to know.
That's generally, that's good enough to jump into, I guess. So this is again, movie from 2001, directed by Gregor Jordan. Has a kind of an interesting little backstory, which I'll tell here at the front of the show.
The front story.
So this movie premiered at the Toronto Film Festival 3 days before 9/11 happened. And apparently it premiered there. People were very excited about it. And then when 9/11 happened, the consensus was there's no way they can release this now. And so then it kind of languished for a couple years and was released in 2003. And even though it had a pretty good reception critically, apparently, but it still kind of fell off the radar. So, Shawn, I'll start with you.
That's good.
Since you're the only other person here.
Well,
what were your impressions going into this? What did you know about it? What were you thinking?
I was thinking of the Bob Marley song. And, I don't know if that kind of put me in an interesting mood, because I don't know that I necessarily like that song. I feel like I've heard it a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. You said it's Joaquin.
Joaquin.
There
you go.
So I wasn't positive. Well, I think you told me the year as well. So I'm expecting, okay, this is slightly younger Joaquin, and that excites me because I think he kind of popped up on my sort of film radar probably around To Die For, the Gus Van Sant movie. I'm sure I saw him in other things before that. I don't necessarily remember him, though. So, yeah, I was kind of psyched to see what this was. I, pull it up on Netflix or whatever. I see this poster. He's standing in front of the American flag, decked out in his military attire. What does that tagline say there? Steal all that you can steal. Yeah. He's throwing the peace sign. I did not know what in the world I was in for. It felt off to me, like so early on, and I never recovered.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say that, because I like almost everyone involved, although the first thing I wrote down was, can you possibly imagine directing a movie with Joaquin Phoenix, Ed Harris, and Scott Glenn and not being the most intimidated person in the world? I would never agree to do that, just because I would be scared for my life. And they seem super picky about the roles they take and what they want to do with their performances. And they're just tough dudes. Like, they are scary. So I tip my hat to that. But overall, this is the one I'm going to remember, I think, so far, that I just did not enjoy. What about you? Tell me, how much did you love it? I'm hoping you liked it better than I did, right?
I know where you're coming from. I can't say I had that strong a reaction to it.
Good.
Because there was a lot of stuff in it that I did like. And some of it just felt like two completely different movies.
I think so. I will say I kind of liked that little opening prologue thing. There's some cool, just the shots of him falling. Some of it looked okay. Some of it looked like not the best effects.
A little cheapo. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was one in particular. This was just like, it felt like the camera was kind of falling behind him as he's falling through the sky, and you can kind of see the city lights and stuff like that down below, where I'm like, whoa, what is this thing? But yeah, then the voiceover. First of all, is falling in a dream the most cliche thing that a dream could talk? I mean, it kind of is.
Yeah.
And so I was hoping they would do something a little bit different with that, and I don't think ultimately it quite panned out. But
no,
yeah, that first proper scene is them playing football on the barracks, right? I think you get a big old shot of an American flag, and then you realize that's just painted on the ground, and they're walking across it, they're marching across it.
Basically, at this point in time, they have this incentive to get people into the army, and it's if you're, you basically get a choice between going to jail for certain things or joining the army. And so it's kind of caused this influx of potential inmates to instead go into the military.
Right, and he says, I know now that prison would have been a lot safer.
Right.
That's the kind of like big tagline to set you up. I want to stop just for a second.
Yeah.
Did you have a sense of what year this was? And did you have a sense that this was Germany in those kind of opening scenes?
No.
I didn't either. I had
not
no
in that
clue.
stuff. Not in that stuff. No, I mean, there's definitely later stuff where it's like, okay, that feels a little. But
well, I mean, it's explicit later, but yeah,
right.
I didn't know.
At first, you don't kind of know where you are.
Like, why not be forthright with that? Like, I think that's interesting. Like, no, you're in Germany. Like, that's exciting. That's okay. Like, this is a base in Germany where it's crawling with American felons. Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. Especially if you're using voiceover, why not establish that immediately?
Yeah. So you get into the scene in the barracks. You have one guy who's shooting up, and he stashes the heroin somewhere, and then a couple other guys are fighting, and they're angry at each other, and for some reason that evolves into an indoor football game between all these guys, and the guy who's just shot up demands to play as well, and there's they say sure. There's a play. Joaquin is sitting there, sort of watching this, or just sitting nearby, and the guy who shot up the junkie is tackled, hits his head on a table. No one notices, but he's dead now. So he's dead. No one cares.
Right. That's the thing. It's not played as, oh God, this is a tragedy, or this is even an accident.
Right. Like, no one cares at all, to the point where they then throw him out the window and pretend it was a suicide.
I almost missed the fact that the dude had died for a second because I was like taking notes, and then the tossing the body out the window, you kind of see it from the outside. There's a couple kids just kind of playing on the ground out there, and you see the body fall out. Yeah. And that again is like, it just felt unsure. Should we be laughing at this or not? I can see where two things. In the film festival crowd, maybe that gets laughs, and in an audience, it is something that you can kind of collectively, on a good night, laugh at.
Yeah.
And in a book, I think, which this is based on a novel by Robert O'Connor, that might work so much better, so much clearer.
Yes. Well, yeah, and you can certainly present it. I could see it being presented in a way that might be a little funnier. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if that's supposed to be a joke, even a dark joke, I don't know that it was set up or that it lands particularly well.
Yeah.
Like, it's more shocking, and it immediately sets you up to dislike all the people in that room.
Which, that was very successful.
Yes. Yes, it was very successful, and I don't think there's really not a point where they really try to win you back.
No.
Which is ballsy.
Yeah. Well, let me stop you right there then, because I forgot to ask, how did you hear about this? Was this just another sort of you just stumbled on it on the internet, or?
Well, I think it was kind of. I remember reading a review for this, and it may have been from the Toronto Film Festival. And I just remember that the review was very glowing about it, just sort of saying that it goes places a lot of movies don't go. And I don't know, that's just always stuck with me, but the movie had faded away.
Right.
Oh, okay. So and then you find out either before or after that, you find out you basically learn about more of his cons, and like one big one is that he buys tons of Mop and Glow through the army and then sells them on the black market to people in Germany.
Right.
And
I think it's in voiceover, but he does very specifically state there are three things that he likes about Germany: his Mercedes, the Autobahn, and the black market.
Right.
And he's definitely taking advantage of all three.
Yes. To continue the unlikability of his character, he is having sex with the wife of the commander of his base,
Played by Ed Harris.
Ed Harris, who's kind of a rube and loves Elwood, who is Joaquin's character, and just thinks Elwood's great, and just trusts him and all that stuff. And so it's pretty painful.
That's probably the softest, like most incompetent character I've ever seen Ed Harris play.
Yeah.
And it's almost by the end of it interesting because of that.
Yes. And then another one of the things that Joaquin's doing on the base is he's cooking heroin for a military police
Sergeant Saad.
Sergeant Saad, who that's kind of his work. That's why he gets to run his black market stuff, is because Saad needs him to also cook heroin. So he leaves Elwood alone to do black market stuff like that. It's not even just a criminal subculture operates among U.S. soldiers. It seems like that's the entire culture. So you're in the midst of this, and to keep going dark.
Let's get darker.
Let's get even darker. There are 3 guys in a tank, all just completely whacked out on heroin.
Yep.
Who go on this kind of crazy fumbling drive through the German countryside.
Yeah.
End up stopped by a couple other soldiers who are driving these 2 big trucks. The guys in the tank end up sort of inadvertently driving over a gas station, over the pumps. There's a huge explosion, killing the U.S. military drivers of the 2 trucks. Just
2 people.
Essentially innocent bystanders.
Blown back and incinerated in a huge fireball.
And the tank drives away. Joaquin and his buddies come on the scene. They look at the guys who just became corpses about 10 minutes ago and say, we should steal these trucks.
Because there's a buttload of weapons and ammo on the back of them, which they can sell for millions
full of
and
weapons.
retire.
Exactly. And so, yet again, it's just like life means nothing. It's sort of this nihilist thing. And I mean, I'm still trying to piece together a lot of this.
I mean, I guess like some of the, you do see a bit of a parallel with Scott Glenn's character. We talked about it a little bit as this like really disgruntled Vietnam vet who has really sort of no, sees life as having no significance, maybe other than his daughters. But I mean, I guess that's the like sort of metaphorical playground that they're dealing with is like, well, it's the military. Clearly, these people aren't signing up to extend the life of something. They're being trained to kill,
Sure.
So is it really fair for us to sit here and criticize these guys that look at, a dead body and toss it out the window as anything other than kind of maybe what they've been trained to do or what they signed up for?
Sure.
And yet, boy, is that hard to hang your hat on as far as like any sort of entertainment value, I guess.
It really is. It really is. Well, I mean, yeah, it's certainly a very specific type of entertainment.
Yeah.
And you don't want to. You're not investing yourself in this character.
Mm-mm.
It's not something where you hope he gets what he wants. So it's you are sort of removed a little bit from the story.
Yeah, I was even thinking about like something like Fight Club a little bit, where there is just like this pervasive cynicism, and just thinking about like having characters. I mean, I certainly don't require a likable character to be interested in something, but I feel like I want to be at least like more invested and excited about watching them fall or fail.
Sure.
When they're that kind of guy. And this, I had a hard time making that connection. I do want to talk about a little bit, just because you mentioned Stripes, like that scene with the guys in the tank where they kind of, go off, off the countryside hill from their drill that they're doing with the other tanks into this town. And that's where you get the moment like, oh, they're running over the tables at the outside, like, beer garden.
Right.
And then next thing you know, there's two punks in a Volkswagen Beetle, and look out, here comes the tank, and it squashes the Volkswagen Beetle. And like that stuff, like in another, like if they weren't high out of their gourds on heroin, which has just killed somebody, like it would be kind of funny. Like even the fact that they are high.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah,
I don't know.
If they were just smoking weed in there,
yes, hilarious.
Suddenly we're in a hilarious comedy.
Yeah. Well, if it hadn't ended with them blowing up and killing people, completely innocent people.
Right.
And then the kicker of that scene, the punchline, of course, is that not only does the tank roll away, it rolls right back into the place where they were supposed to be to complete the military exercise.
Right.
And the guys on the radio are like, all right, over and out. Good job. And that, to me, like, I get it. Like, that, I think, is the criticism that they're making maybe against the military. But there is absolutely no oversight whatsoever by anybody in this movie. Like, I just kept thinking, it was like, how the hell are they rolling through this town and nobody seems to know?
Yeah.
Like, or coming out, and there really seems to be no fallout from this whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that was something my wife also raised at that point, which was, it's like, how did a gas station blow up? And we're never going to hear about that again.
Can you imagine how outraged that town would be against the U.S.? I mean, like, come on. Like, it's amazing. And so that, it's a bit of a, they're definitely playing, like, in that satirical world, but it's just hard to sort of pick up and go with that dichotomy between this really, really super duper serious dark stuff and those kind of moments of satirical high comedy.
Yeah.
Because it didn't feel like I should be laughing at it, even when I'm like you, recognizing that in a slightly different, you change one thing, you change the drug to marijuana, and suddenly it's funny.
That's okay. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, that was probably the last moment of comedy in the movie too.
Right.
I don't know.
Because then
that's pretty early on.
Somehow, so they steal all those weapons, and the whole idea is to sell it, and they go and they set up, a way to sell them to this guy, and the guy will only buy them with opium, and so they're going to take all the opium and they're going to cook that into heroin and sell that and give him the weapons. And then around this time, Scott Glenn shows up. Yep. And somehow the whole movie becomes even darker than it was to begin with, because now Scott Glenn is there, and Scott Glenn can immediately tell that these guys are conning the shit out of everybody.
Yeah, so Anna Paquin,
thank you,
shows up, and she is the daughter, of course, of Scott Glenn's character, who is now, he's like, they keep calling him Top. Like, I think he's Sergeant. Actually, I think his character's name is Robert E. Lee, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, First Sergeant Robert E. Lee.
Yeah. So, obviously, he's a big to-do. And then she is kind of introduced at the barracks swimming pool. She's on the high platform, does an awesome little perfect dive into the water. She comes outside. Her car won't start. There's Joaquin to help her get her car started. And he just pops the hood and touches one thing, and like suddenly it's that's another thing. I was just like, well, what the heck is he doing? But of course, like, this is where.
Well, wait a second. Was that a con though?
Maybe he did. It could have been.
Did he pull?
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
Okay.
Did they show that?
I honestly don't remember. Like, I'm trying to remember the scene, and it's just occurring to me now that maybe that was just his whole
He probably
setup.
would have. I mean, it would make more sense. Okay, forget everything I just said. He's a perfectly nice dude. He knows what he's doing. He's in total control.
He's a manipulator.
But this is like, they start talking about, and so I'm just like, well, that's kind of weird. Why, like, you introduce this girl as diving. It's not done in a way where it's like Phoebe Cates on a diving board in Fast Times at Ridgemont. It's not like she's being played as super sexy in this.
It's like it's just like she's an Olympic diver.
Right. But the whole point of that then is sort of, I think it's revealed in that conversation they have where she's talking about diving and he's like, well, you wouldn't get me up there or whatever. And she's like, well, it's fun. It's like falling is fun. And then it's like, oh yeah, okay, this is okay. Yeah. That's where that opening dream, like somehow this is going to...
Here comes our theme, yeah.
But it felt writerly to me, like, at that point.
Yes.
I don't know. Again,
yeah, and I'll definitely say that. There were definitely places in the story where it was like, okay, that feels like a book. Yeah. That part feels like it just came right out of a book. And yeah, that'd be great if you were reading the book. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there were definitely places where it just felt like,
But so like what you were talking about earlier, I think that's kind of like right after this is sort of where that kicks off. Like I think this is what you're saying. I totally got the feel like it seems like the movie shifts to becoming, this is going to be about Joaquin and Scott Glenn now going head to head. Like, and he's going to date this guy's daughter just to piss him off, and the Scott Glenn's going to do everything he can to piss Joaquin off. It's a weird turn. Like, it definitely was a weird.
Well, and it also continues a thing that I think also goes throughout the entire movie, where it seems to continually set up situations that you would see in any comedy. It set up the exact kind of situations that you would just see in like a straight goofball comedy. But then it never becomes goofball because it just stays deadly serious, which is interesting to me. I mean, the whole setup that he would see, what a beautiful girl there in the pool. Oh, that's the daughter of your nemesis, and like, okay. Then it's a rivalry. You could see a totally different movie coming out of that. But I mean, Scott Glenn is never less than 100% serious. He never ends up with a pie in his face.
No.
He is super pissed. And, the night that Joaquin takes her out, he ends up, they take some ecstasy. They end up doing it in her car outside the house. And Scott Glenn watches
from the window,
silently fuming.
And this is after he already followed them in his car. Yeah. And then I did think it was hilarious when he tried to get into the nightclub that they went into, and like these German bouncers won't let him in basically because he's got white sneakers on. Yeah. Which I like. Like it's Scott Glenn in jeans and white sneakers being denied entrance to a German dance club. I'm all about let's see some of that.
That's just true to life.
Yeah, but I guess we should say though, I think a little bit prior to this, one of the first things that Scott Glenn did to mess with Joaquin was he not only cleaned out Joaquin's room of all the crap that he had brought into the base from the black market, like that he's not supposed to have a TV, had like a couch. I mean, it's like basically like a little bachelor's lounge that he had going on in his room. Yeah. And assigns him a roommate in the form of, I think the guy's name is Private Noel.
The scene starts out with Joaquin treating him really nicely. Yeah. When he's just processing the papers and doesn't know that this guy is supposed to be his roommate, he seems nicer than I would even expect him to be. And I realize part of that may just be because, well, if I'm friends with everybody, like I have to put on the demeanor of being friends with everybody so that I can, everyone's a customer or something, and maybe that's what it is. But he's like, whenever the guy is like, hey, and I came here to be with my, my sweetheart or whatever, and he's like, oh, that's very sweet. It's like, really? Like Elwood is saying that's sweet? You tossed a dead guy out of a window a little while ago.
I did not. No, he didn't. He didn't say that was sweet, did he?
Yes, he did. He was like,
I was like, no, because he was going. Because this poor Private Noel kept calling him sir, and he was like, "You're not gonna call me sir. I'm not, and all this." Like I thought he was still just being kind of a prick to him or whatever. It's like, just sit down, like relax. You don't have to stand at attention,
I feel like he wasn't mad until he wasn't like terrible until it was said that he was going to be roommates.
I think this is all reflective of how mad I personally was at Joaquin at this point in the movie. But let's complete talking about. The Scott Glenn Joaquin head to head, there's a bit where Scott Glenn basically pulls Joaquin's Mercedes out onto the firing range and has all the guys like open fire on it, including Joaquin. Basically destroys this thing that he loves, the Mercedes. Anna Paquin is like, no, Joaquin, you must have done something. My dad doesn't just get, I mean, he gets pissed off at guys, sure, but like, he wants to kill you. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, that whole thing was kind of interesting too, because like, it definitely seems like this girl knows that her dad is not a good dude.
Right.
And yet, I mean, it's like, she's kind of either okay with that, or she's not really doing anything to stop Joaquin from seeing her, or she's not stopping seeing him herself, which in a sense I kind of like, because these two people aren't necessarily in love. Like, you know, if they had tried to paint like that, here's this girl that's going to change Joaquin because he suddenly fought. That would have been bullshit from, you know, word go to the end. Yes.
Although you have that scene between Joaquin and Stoney in the cafeteria where Joaquin is saying that he thinks he loves her.
I know he says that, but he doesn't mean it, Craig. Come on.
But why would he say that to Stoney?
Because he's on heroin. No, he's not on heroin. I guess we should point that out. Like, I don't think he does it himself. But
like, I was kind of looking at it. He
says it, but come on, what does he know about love?
Well, I mean, he blows up the Mercedes.
Yeah.
Like he ends up. He has the biggest gun out there on the range. Joaquin does. And so he ends up being the one who kind of gives the Mercedes the kill shot and just blowing it up, kind of in spite, you know, knowing that.
Oh, it's definitely
Glenn just wants to see him shoot his own car and knows how much it means to him. And so there's a little bit of me that I was thinking, well, is he kind of letting go of that persona then? Is that symbolic of him sort of like, okay, you know.
It was an ugly car, let's be honest.
It was an awful car.
No, I don't know. I mean, what about this? How awesome would it have been if he had just turned and shot Scott Glenn to death, right?
Right. and really, either one could have happened.
Yeah, and that would have been pretty symbolic.
That would have been a little more straightforward.
I think that was maybe. I think that's maybe, it's a bit of the crumbling of Joaquin's castle, for sure.
Right.
Of the three things that he loves about Germany, you're taking one out right there in a very fun way, I thought. And
then we get some story with Colonel Berman, who is Ed Harris. You know, he's discovered that he's related to somebody named the Iron Boar, somebody who's supposed to be an important a Civil War general from back in the day, and he's going to use this story to impress a higher up at this party to try and get a promotion, and his wife is the one who's like totally pushing him on it.
Right, because the wife has the party was the wife's idea, right? And she asked Joaquin to get decorations for it, I guess. Yeah, so they show up in like Joaquin's in the soldiers. You know, what is it? He's wearing the blue, I think.
Yeah.
And Dean Stockwell, my man from Quantum Leap, is the guy, the general that Colonel Berman, whatever Ed Harris's name is trying. I mean, everything. Like anytime you have a character, an adult, practicing an anecdote in a mirror, unless you're like giving the State of Union address, like I don't buy it. I just don't buy it.
Well, I'll defend that moment actually. I totally buy that he is that bad at social interaction and that scared of sounding like an idiot that he's actually practicing telling this story.
And in the process, sounding like an idiot.
I sound like an idiot, but he sounds like an idiot in everything he does throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
So I mean, I bought that.
Okay.
And it does set up, you know, how badly he tells it. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I love the fact that when he tells it to the mirror and when he tells it to the general, both times it doesn't sound in the least bit convincing.
No, not at all.
Like it's a man who does not care about being related to any Civil War, anybody. Is just trying to get a promotion because his wife is pushing him to get a promotion, and otherwise, like, does not care. He is just trying to perform. He is not an actor, but he is not strong enough to tell people no.
I think I swear, I feel like that whole character would have been funnier if he had just been falsely confident. Maybe that's the angle that would have made me a little bit happier, Craig.
Maybe so.
I'm gonna get that note to Ed Harris.
Get a note. We'll get that to Gregor Jordan and some of these folks.
Yeah.
See if they can just tweak it a little bit.
I think we could do, like revisit this.
But yeah, so we're at this Civil War party. Robert E. Lee and his daughter come in. The general loves this guy for some reason.
Who doesn't?
And right, and then So Robert E. Lee comes over to the punch table where Joaquin is with his friend Stoney, an African-American fellow, also dressed as a Civil War soldier, a Buffalo Soldier, perhaps, if you will. But yeah, so there's a confrontation here at the punch table at this Civil War party. Robert E. Lee comes up and, Joaquin makes some comments and Lee makes some comments. I can't remember what those comments are, to be honest. The only thing I remember is what he says to Stoney.
Yeah.
Boy, you must get tired of getting fucked by all these white guys or something like that. And Stoney's not too happy about that. And then he says, you're not a coward like Elwood.
Yep.
Like you're the kind of guy who gets all the medals, and walks away.
Now, if I'm not mistaken,
it's
not long after this into the Stoney character.
Yes.
Because we find out that the, I guess, normal package of heroin that the military police chief Saad was supposed to pick up was not where it should have been, right? And so obviously that's a big problem. Saad literally threatens to kill Elwood if that happens again, I guess, or if it's not found. And so not long after that Civil War scene, I think Stoney goes to look for it and opens up what looks like a supply closet, basically, or a locker of some sort. Gets blown up, straight up blown up, and sort of revealed that there was, I think, a grenade. I wasn't quite sure how they rigged it, but they rigged it somehow so that by opening the door, they pulled the pin on the grenade, because you see like the grenade hanging on a string, and you get that moment where he realizes he's going to die, basically. The people that get blown up and blown backwards in this movie, I thought it was done pretty well. It's kind of
a number of times,
it's kind of visceral, and some good, I guess, effects work on that front.
For sure. I was confused about that until the end, about that whole sequence.
Absolutely.
I remember thinking that Stoney was walking onto the hall where Joaquin was for some reason. Like we had just left a scene with Joaquin in his room or something, and Stoney was walking into his hall or something. I couldn't figure that out.
I think actually that was following the scene where Joaquin comes back to find out that his roommate, Private Noel, had been beaten up. That's
right. Noel was beaten up during the Civil War party. And so Noel was just walking across the base by himself.
Right. So I was a little confused why they were beating him up. And then
it seemed like it seemed like a turf thing.
Yeah.
It seemed like you don't walk through this part of the base at night.
So weird. And just again was just like.
And I bought that, and it actually it was very interesting to think about things that way, because I would assume if you're on an army base, you're about as safe as you can be.
I know. And that's
is that really what happens? Does it just become like a little city, and there are bad parts and there are good parts?
The whole thing, now that I'm thinking about it, and that I mentioned Shawshank, I mean, it feels like a prison movie in a lot of ways. We should have done this with Start Up back to back and just had a drink yourself to death party. But
well, and I think there should be a lot of parallels, because I think that's what they're trying to say in a lot of it.
I think you're right. But I wanted to briefly just mention another thing that I really liked about that scene when Joaquin does kind of find that Private Noel had been beaten up. And, he's got, his face is extremely bloodied. It looks like the source is just maybe one particular cut on his cheek. Joaquin says, "Let me help you clean it up." I think that his version of that ends up just being, he puts one Band-Aid on the guy and then asks him if he wants a beer. But I did like the scene. I think it was my favorite one in the movie. And this Noel guy is played by, I think his name is Gabriel Mann, and he was on Mad Men. He had a recurring character. I don't remember him that well.
Yeah.
You know him?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't finished watching Mad Men, so it's not quite. I thought he was really good. I mean, he looks a little bit like Matthew Modine in Full Metal Jacket, but he tells this little, just very brief story about he kind of signed up to be in the military. His dad was in the military, and every year he has the barbecue with the guys that he served with, and it's his brothers for life, like his soldiers' friends, and. The scene accomplishes the feat of knowing that Noel thought it would be that way for him without, I think, him explicitly saying that, if I remember correctly. I just thought that was a nice touch. I thought his performance was good, and I thought Joaquin, it was really sort of the only moment of vulnerability that you really see from Joaquin.
Yeah.
I will say, though, after that, though, when you see them again, Noel is 100% on Joaquin's side, to the point where he's cooking heroin with them when they have the big cook-off or whatever. You know, basically, after Stoney dies, I think Joaquin goes back to that Turkish arms dealer guy and is trying to call off the drug deal, right? Because there's no way now he can cook that opium, right?
Well, it's partially that, and partially because where they stashed all those weapons is now going to be the site of an exercise, a military exercise.
That's right.
And he's like, and it was my impression that he was saying he needed more time or something. Like he wasn't going to be able to get that stuff. He wasn't going to be able to get the guns and stuff to him on time or maybe at all. And the guy's like, no, you have to do it. You have to figure out a way to do it. And meanwhile, like where they stashed this thing is going to be crawling with soldiers for who knows how long. I guess it was supposed to be like 48 hours.
Yeah. And that was a military exercise that Ed Harris's character cooks up as a way to prove his worth. Basically, it's a pissing contest with the other guy, the marshal guy who is also up for that promotion. And so, Joaquin rigs that drill, right? And so it basically ends as soon as it begins because the other guys know exactly where Ed Harris's guys are going to be. And I don't know. I didn't quite exactly fire the tactical maneuver that was made.
Right.
But boy, does Ed Harris get his ass handed to him in a humiliating way, which is the only thing that could have happened. And then another scene I liked was after that when he was talking with Joaquin about how, he basically got demoted. I mean, I don't think he said it was forced retirement, but it sort of seems like that would be the only option, which is what he's going to choose. He's going to take his pension. He's going to go buy a vineyard or whatever, which you just know. There's probably no way that Colonel character knows how to make wine.
All right. So they're cooking the heroin. There's a scheme that Joaquin has. And he tells Noel about it. Right. He says, okay, we're gonna have a lot of food there. It's going to be all meat. And you got to eat it, because if you don't eat it, then the fumes will really start to affect you. And it's going to be meat because Saad doesn't eat meat. He's a vegetarian. So we want that guy to, I don't know, die, maybe? I honestly don't know what the end game there is. Like, if you breathe too many of those fumes, you're probably not going to be okay.
Yeah.
But he wants to set that up, in the very least, to incapacitate Saad.
Yeah, I felt like it was like a justifiable payback for all the crap that Saad had. Yeah. Like this thing that they were setting.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun.
And then, as you do, Joaquin takes a break and goes and sees his lady. Which I was kind of like, okay, I guess you would do that in the middle of this.
You can't cook heroin like for 12 hours straight without taking a break, man.
Right. So he meets Paquin at the pool. They go up on the high dive.
You better believe it.
He deals with his fear. He ends up jumping off. They end up making out and, quite frankly, doing it.
They do.
Probably in the pool, which is kind of gross. He had his boots on. I'm a person who swims in a Y most mornings. You don't want
to get in that pool.
I don't want to think about people doing it. I don't even want to think about people with boots on.
There's not enough chlorine in the world to clean that out.
There's not. You're gonna have to drain that.
Not those. Can you imagine how much heroin is in that water in that pool?
The street value of that pool at that point.
That was the only reason Anna Paquin agreed to have sex with him in the pool, was because she was high on heroin from the water.
That's the only reason anyone would. So that happens. You go back to the cook. You see on TV that the Berlin Wall is coming down. I think that's when there's a comment about, are we in East or West Germany?
Swear to God,
no one really knows where they are.
That was the only moment I realized we were not like in the 90s.
Oh yeah. Oh really?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I guess I kind of knew that it was going to be set during the Berlin Wall. But yeah, so we go back to the pool. Noel comes running in and sees Anna and Joaquin like laying down there at the pool.
Yeah.
He stops, doesn't say anything. I think Joaquin kind of sees him and says, "Hey, what's going on?" Then Noel runs out the door. Next thing you know, Lee is coming running in.
Scott Glenn, look out.
Robert Lee comes in and just starts pounding on Joaquin. Noel grabs Robin and hauls her out. So that's when you learn Noel has been a plant the entire time.
Yep.
and he's just been there to spy on Joaquin at Robert E. Lee's orders. And so Noel's gone, and Robert E. Lee reveals to Joaquin that he's the one who booby-trapped the closet that killed Stoney.
Yeah, so he's a murderer.
Yeah, so he is, and that basically, I don't know if he reveals it here or later, sort of in the elevator, where he's basically saying, like, I was you, when I was younger. Like, I was doing what you're doing now,
Yeah.
It was a much more brutal game, I guess.
I have some of that dialogue, and in fact, maybe if we could find that clip, oh my gosh, it's a great speech. I do want to back up 1 second just to ask you,
Okay.
Did you pick up on the fact that Noel was undercover, or was that a surprise to you?
That was a total surprise to me.
Me too.
In the pool room.
Made total sense, and I like that. Because that then made me okay with what I saw as maybe weakly motivated allegiance to Joaquin on his behalf,
Yes.
And I just thought it was a cool choice, and it was a cool character, again, like that character and the guy's performance. It was an interesting guy to put in that role of being a mole, because I'm sure, like, if there were backstory on this character, maybe that's in the novel, would be kind of interesting. It's like, yeah, just imagining, like, this is the ultimate assignment for a guy like that in non-wartime military, right?
Oh, yeah.
In a base in Germany.
Right.
And then, like, the reality is, like, oh my God, like, it's so worse than what he had possibly could have imagined, with people getting dying. And then, yeah, Robert E. Lee blowing up Stoney. And then, as soon as he takes Joaquin out of that pool, like, Anna Paquin is saying, like, where's he taking Joaquin? He's like, he's taking him to the stockade to arrest him. And she's like, no, you idiot, the stockade's the other way. He's going to kill him,
Yeah.
Which, again, is an interesting daughter-father relationship that she would intuit that from her dad. Yeah. Lovely Scott Glenn there.
So let me ask this. Did you understand the whole thing about Robert E. Lee killing Stoney?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you.
I had to go back and piece all that together. I didn't remember that character as being Stoney. I mean, Stoney was killed a ways back before this happened.
Yeah.
So he's killed, honestly, and I was kind of like, what? Who did that? And I figured maybe it was Sod, but I was like, why?
A lot of, a big problem was, a lot of those minor characters, like Stoney, like Garcia, Pena's character, they just don't get enough screen time, or really sort of, like, maybe just don't have enough due to really stand out in a way that, you completely feel like you know who they are, even, or what they're doing, or kind of all that stuff. I don't know why Robert E. Lee would have felt like he had to kill that guy, other than maybe he was hoping it would have been Joaquin that opened that closet.
Finding out who Robert E. Lee is at the end, I kind of feel like he felt like he couldn't go wrong. Basically, like, it might kill Joaquin.
I don't think he didn't give a damn.
And if it kills any of his friends, that's great too, because I'm just going to, take everything out on him. So, it took me, like, at that point in the movie, I did not understand what was going on with that particular thing.
Right. And here's what Robert E. Lee says about himself to Joaquin as they're taking the elevator up to, I guess, it's like the third story or whatever of the building where they're cooking the heroin in. He said, "You want to hear the secret of Vietnam? The secret of Vietnam is simple. I loved it. The whole damn thing was nothing but fun. I'm just being honest." And goes on from there. And that speech was pretty fantastic and horrifying. Like, I mean, obviously, it's painting a very kind of clear picture of this guy as, someone who probably walked into Vietnam and lost his marbles a little bit and never recovered, and was always kind of looking for some way to get back, in the sense of, that type of action, or that type of life or death circumstances. And obviously there were none to be found outside of that, in
the late 80s military.
In Germany where they're at, except for the heroin guy who's dating your daughter, I guess.
Right.
You get this nice little elevator ride up to this third story where you're kind of wondering which one is going to win, and I guess a little conflicted about who to even root for. I think at that point I will say, I did actually hope Joaquin maybe would make it out alive,
Sure.
or at least something.
Mainly because Anna Paquin wants him to.
I guess.
Maybe,
Or because Robert Lee was slightly worse of a person. Right. Well, comfortably worse.
Yes, yeah.
I don't think Joaquin killed anybody that I can completely...
Yeah, he didn't want to kill anybody.
Yeah.
That wasn't a direct threat to him anyway.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for that.
Right. And you get this parallel action where, I don't know, like, are they like just other soldiers that storm the cooking party and are
I think they're a part of Noel too. For some reason, I think Noel knows about that.
Yeah.
And so these guys storm in and they're going to shut down this whole operation. Everybody's under arrest. But because everyone's so high from all the fumes, it turns into a huge gunfight. And again, it felt like something that this would be funny in another movie. And here it just feels like, oh God, like this is really bad.
Yeah. I mean, these soldiers have like their machine guns pointed at these guys, and Saad is kind of like lumbering around, and you see his POV, and like his vision is blurry. I mean, like, but so, the guy is telling him to stand down. He can't see straight. It's not, doesn't know what's going on, is out of his mind, and he fires his weapon. Huge gunfight breaks out, right? And so all parties are shooting at each other. I think maybe at this point fires have started to happen because no one is regulating the temperature of the cookers. And
somebody hits a valve as they're running by, and that fire starts spewing out of all the cookers. And Scott Glenn has Joaquin in a room. He opens a window. Scott Glenn hoists Joaquin up, puts him on the window, like basically he's going to throw him out the window.
Kill him.
Not unlike what they did to the dead guy at the beginning.
Absolutely.
And just as he's doing this, Noel runs in with the gun, telling Scott Glenn to stop. Because Noel, despite everything, Noel is a straight arrow. And
he at least, I guess you could say, technically, physically, does have a heart in his body, whereas the rest of them, I'm just not sure about.
He may be struggling a bit, but he's still, He's still kind of got it. And so there's a very short sort of standoff there. Then all the heroin blows. The explosion, I guess, kills Noel, but at least knocks him down.
Did he get a shot off first? I couldn't remember. Did he actually shoot Lee or not?
I don't think he did get a shot.
Okay,
off.
I couldn't quite remember.
As I remember, but then the explosion also starts to knock Joaquin out the window, and he throws his arms over Scott Glenn's neck, and they both go out the window, and they fall through
slow motion
wall of flame, and we're brought back to him falling when he's asleep. There's a bit of VO there that I don't remember as well.
I wrote, not the hell even sure what the voiceover is about, so that's what I remember.
Fair enough. The only thing I really remember from that moment is Scott Glenn's face being very squinched up like this.
Yeah.
And then me just trying to puzzle out how they shot it, because clearly they shot it against a green screen or something.
Uh-huh.
And just wondering what that must have been like, where he's just like this. And that's my thoughts totally went there. And then Joaquin lands on him, and then bam, 8 months later.
Right.
Is the card that comes up.
So Noel is dead. I mean, we're assuming Noel.
I'm assuming everybody else
in that building
from that building is dead.
Yeah.
Except for Anna Paquin, who was outside, and Joaquin.
Which she was in the car right out front, right?
She was, yeah. Well, but not that it should matter. I have no idea how explosions work, really.
I know.
But she was off to the side.
I think she would have survived for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
She seemed far enough
she
away.
Does.
Yeah.
She probably got a bill wrong a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
8 months later, where are we?
8 months later, we're in Hawaii, a base in Hawaii. We've got another sort of rube base commander.
Yep.
And he's looking. We're looking at Joaquin's medals that he got for
service medal. Yeah.
For what?
It's a service medal.
It's service medal. Yeah. They talk about how Robert E. Lee posthumously got the Silver Star. I guess it was played up as if they were trying to stop this heroin situation that was going on.
Well, in Stars and Stripes, they reported it as a gas explosion. He read about it in the Stars and Stripes.
Oh, yes. Oh, and so Robert E. Lee saved Joaquin.
I guess, yeah.
That's kind of what they played it out to be.
Yeah.
So, and Joaquin's got a huge brace on his leg. His face is all cut up, but he's he's healing. He's in this beautiful place. And and he talks about how his sweetheart's at college, his sweetheart being Anna Paquin, and she'll be coming to visit him in a while.
Yep.
And we end with the commander sitting down and looking over some requisites, and he says 1,000 gallons of Mop and Glow. What is this for?
Seems like a lot.
Yeah, it seems like a lot. And he says, well, godliness is, cleanliness is next to godliness. And that's the same line that Joaquin used on Berman in the beginning for the exact same situation. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is the end.
And that is the end.
And how did that sit with you as an ending?
It was a fine ending. It was probably the more of the ending that I would want than anything else. I don't know. Like, honestly, all the stuff about the Berlin Wall and what else was it? There was something else that kind of ran through the whole thing that once we got to the end, I kind of felt like, did we just kind of let those things go? Like, did any of that matter? Like, what was but anyway.
The weapons,
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is another area where I'm just like, how in the world would some of that not come out? If you have this massive explosion, this many people died, there would be a military investigation. Now, sure, they may prop Robert E. Lee up as a hero in that, but come on, like, the heroine's not going to come out. Joaquin's not going to be traced to that. And so,
well, it certainly seems implausible that yes, that much heroin and that all those chemicals would cause that huge explosion, and there would be no difference between that and a gas explosion.
Yeah, and leaving your oven on.
Right. But it sort of was a gas explosion.
Oh, it definitely was a gas explosion, but
you still are going to find tons of bodies and all the trash cans and like a lot of evidence of the setup. I mean, unless I can't imagine that the fire is going to burn so hot it's going to burn all that stuff to ash and you never find it.
Not to mention a lot of beef. Oh, that beef they bought.
There's a lot of well done burgers.
Is that a satisfying conclusion for that character?
That's the thing. I don't think that there is. I mean, the other way that you go is that he gives up all his con man ways, and he's settled at home with Anna Paquin, and
why not send him to jail where he should have gone in the first place? He knew that jail would be safer than the military.
But no, I mean, how would you get to the point where he goes to jail and that's a satisfying ending? Like, I kind of feel like once you get to that ending, and Scott Glenn is so much more horrible than he is, wants to kill him, and Anna Paquin wants him to live.
What about this? What if Noel had shot them both?
Okay.
He takes off with Anna Paquin. They move to Hawaii, and then they make the movie Aloha.
Yes, that explains a lot. No, actually, that would absolutely be a satisfying ending.
That'd be cool, huh?
Shawn, because that would be maybe the bleakest thing of all. It's like the idea then being everybody has this ability to be bad, this ability to make bad choices to profit themselves, and Noel has just gotten to the point where he realizes, oh, this is an opportunity.
Yep.
He kills those two guys and walks off into the sunset somehow. I mean, once everything blows up, there's nothing for anyone to profit from. So you'd have to change the blowing up part. But I mean, otherwise,
I think it would have worked too, because again, with a movie where everybody is so unlikable, I think you could get away with Noel doing an unlikable thing and having it feel satisfying because of he's not who you previously thought he was. Right. Whereas, I don't know. I'm trying to, again, I think my takeaway from this was learning specifically about and thinking about writing unlikable characters and how some movies pull that off in a way that I think is awesome. Even you could look at Clockwork Orange or something. And a movie like this didn't quite do it for me. And I do wonder if maybe it culminates in the fact that it ends with with Joaquin getting away without any sort of retribution, I guess. My takeaway, is thinking about things like that, thinking about things like adaptation and tone, definitely tone, and trying to play dark comedy and the good ways of doing that, and the real difficulty involved in that.
Yeah, I mean, Noel's really good. I mean, Scott Glenn is doing his normal thing.
Yeah.
It really it was odd, Ed Harris and Dean Stockwell and the other fella who played Marshall. That whole subplot felt like a really completely different movie. Like that was
absolutely.
A very different kind of tone happening there. That also I don't know how much brought to the movie overall.
Yeah, I honestly, like, if you moved that to England and that was like John Cleese and like two other British dudes, totally different, I think. For whatever reason. And like I can see those sort of same scenes playing out and being much funnier, much drier,
and just being its own movie.
Yeah. Let's watch that movie. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And we could also call it Buffalo Soldiers, I think. What do you think about that sort of decision to move this post 9/11? It's obviously it's easy in hindsight to kind of look at it and say, is there really anything in this movie that somebody would have just like sat down and burst into tears watching? That they would have made them think about 9/11 whatsoever.
No, well, I don't even think it's that. I think it's mainly that 9/11 happened and everyone was rah America, and there was such a groundswell for the U.S. military.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
I think it was mainly they just didn't want to have something critical of the U.S. military then, because people were not in the mood. That was not.
No, I guess so. Like, I don't have a great sense of remembering that, but I do think you're right.
I still kind of feel like it's kind of a long shot to think that would prevent this movie from making money.
Yeah,
it's critical, but I mean, at the same time, like, do you look at that and say that's what every base is like? That's what every soldier is like? Or do you think that's what happened in Germany in 1989? I don't know.
I think it's very specific, yeah. All right, Craig, I think next time it's high time we do another listener suggestion. What do you say?
Absolutely. We have the best listeners, and their suggestions are just the best.
Absolutely. In fact, this one, I think we're both pretty darn excited to watch this. What we're going to do is we're going to check out a movie called Hail Caesar. And this is not the Coen Brothers movie that's coming out, although obviously I want to see that too. This is the 1994 comedy directed by and starring one Anthony Michael Hall. I did not know he ever directed a movie. Did you?
I did not. I was a big fan of his movies in the 80s. 16 Candles, Weird Science.
Ah, the best. Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club, yes, of course. He was in another movie called Johnny Be Good. Did you see that movie by any chance?
Called Johnny Be Good, yes.
But this one I've never heard of, and so I'm excited to see exactly what he did.
Yeah, and so this was suggested by Nancy Putnam. Nancy, thank you. We're excited to check it out. I think you're going to have to find it on DVD if you're looking for it. But go see it and join us next time, and we'll dive right in and see what Mr. Hall accomplished here in his directorial debut.
Absolutely. Until then, enjoy yourselves. That's it.